he decided to play basically Russian roulette while drunk and high, shooting at both of my daughters, grazing them both with bullets, caging my 3 youngest children outside in a large animal cage. He was threatening them that they would be taken from me. He was grooming my youngest daughter, oldest son. He was physically, mentally, emotionally abusing them in such toxic ways. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the system said the prisons were too full and they lost evidence, even though he had even confessed. It was a miracle that we spent a year in hiding. I had even entered into the address confidentiality program, basically making me a hidden entity within the state. Please, if you hear anything from this podcast today, this interview, know this. Disney's movie Moana really speaks to a level of what gifts some people have when it comes to the water. They do long-term holding the breath and breathing underwater. And when they go to these spaces, they go to a meditative state and they make connection. They make connection to the water energies, the water elements, mermaids, other mystical beings. That even if you are spiritually guided and led, trust your intuition. Not every spiritual teacher, not every spiritual guide is meant for you. It's a commitment of 27.5 hours per child in therapy each month. And I committed all 4 children to that program. It's been 4 years now, and they have all actually graduated.
The views expressed in this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and do not constitute professional advice. In this episode, we explore deeply personal and emotional topics. This episode may contain mature content, including but not limited to sexual assault, suicide, or physical or emotional abuse. These conversations are meant to bring awareness and healing, but they may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. If you are in crisis, please seek immediate help from a licensed professional or emergency services. Remember, you are not alone, and support is always available.
Please, if you hear anything from this podcast today, this interview, know this. You are not here to fix or to change anybody. You can guide and teach by your own actions, and you can lead the horse to water, but you can never force it to drink. So never stay in a relationship that's abusive or toxic. Before I ever married my husband, and while I was pregnant with my son, I knew I hit a moment where I went to leave him. He dragged me back one night at 4 o'clock in the morning, threatening to kill me, and I had to jump out of a moving vehicle going between 60 and 70 miles an hour on a dirt road where he went to take a 90-degree turn, and he was telling me that he was going to kill us. I jumped out of that truck to save me and my son's life, and by the grace of God, I had enough wits to roll, and I did end up twisting my ankle, scraping myself up pretty good, but pure adrenaline at 5 months pregnant had me get up and keep going. He ran me down with his truck, and it was the first time anybody had taken full capacity of me where I had no ability to fight, no ability to protect myself, or in no way out, except to play fawn, to go into fawn energies. I'll listen to anything you have to say. I'll do anything you want. Okay. I survived that night. And by the time I got back to our apartment and I'd seen the damage, he had busted every window out, every door, furniture overturned, everything. I snapped. Due to my upbringing in an abusive, toxic, violent home and everything I'd already endured, my mental space snapped. And I couldn't fight him. I knew I couldn't fight him. So I stayed. And I tried to make the best of it. After I had died at childbirth, he got better for a little while. But ultimately, each child brought on a little bit more trouble and brought on another health condition for me. I developed hypoglycemia after my first daughter, second daughter, pulmonary disorder, second son, my youngest. I had my anemia had fully kicked in to a point that I had to start doing infusion treatments. I'd always been borderline, but my youngest officially tipped me over the edge. But I survived, and ultimately, after 11 years, I left. I left because he crossed the line with me. I was one of those people who were told you always stayed. It was your wifely duty. Just lay there and take it. That's not true. For so many of you out there who have ever heard anything like that, whoever's telling you that, they're wrong. That's not the truth. Get out. Get away. There's help. There's guidance. There's support. But I did. I left. And a year later, as he fell back on other drugs and other existences, he crossed the line, found out that he was on them, and I took custody of my children. And that was in 2019 to 2020. 2020, when I took my children, we didn't have a parenting plan in place. And when I took my children out, they actually ended up, we were in a dawn shelter when my daughter ended up revealing to me that her father had shot at her. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, with a Nerf gun? You know, thinking it's a toy gun. Right. And she explained to me no. And I actually was on the phone making the appointment with her therapist at this time. So it was kind of like, are you hearing this? Because it was wild. But what I ended up finding out through 2021 was he decided to play basically Russian roulette while drunk and high, shooting at both of my daughters, grazing them both with bullets, caging my 3 youngest children outside in a large animal cage. He was threatening them that they would be taken from me. He was grooming my youngest daughter, oldest son. He was physically, mentally, emotionally abusing them in such toxic ways. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the system said the prisons were too full and they lost evidence. Even though he had even confessed to raping me, they let him off the hook. Now, Washington State is also a 100% reunification state. And this has also led to why I advocate. That's why I became an advocate, because people need to understand that the 50-50 Reunification Act is not necessarily correct or healthy. The fact is children who have been subject to physical and mental abuse long-term and forced to stay in it are going to develop what we call Stockholm Syndrome. Mm-hmm. There was a reason why I lost 10 years of my life. Because when I mentally flipped my switch at 11 years old, the state had been in, teachers had been in, family, friends, everybody had been in, recognizing the abuse and the level of pain and torture I had been going through, but yet nobody was saving me. Mm-hmm. And when you recognize that there's no way out, the only thing you can do is endure. Well, sometimes you have to become the monster to survive the monsters. I didn't enjoy being that person, but ultimately it helped me recognize when my children were in that space that there was something I could do, and it was time to do it. So I started speaking up. I took the stage, speaking up on sharing my story and helping other people understand. Always led by spirit, always guided, constantly asked for signs every day, all the time. I had put myself through school as an electrician while I was married to my husband. And after COVID, I had left my career. I even told them that I was being guided. Asked my dad one day, I was like, Spirit's calling me, telling me it's time to take my commitment to Spirit. And I asked my dad and my mom. My mother goes, are you crazy? You better talk to your father. She thought she was going to talk me out of it. She was worried about me financially. She was. And I said, okay, Dad. I go, Spirit's calling. And he goes, baby, if Spirit's calling you, there's nothing I can say or your mom can say other than you got to do what you got to do. Spirit's calling, you got to answer the call. That was all it took. I forever gave up my tool belt and committed myself to becoming the Reverend, getting myself trained, licensed to be a spiritual teacher. I put myself through spiritual life coaching, 3 different programs actually, certifying myself, Authentic Living, Mandy Morris in Colorado. She's amazing. She's well known around the world, and eventually led into sacred geometry through Geo Love. Oliver Nero was my teacher as well. They're based out of Colorado now. And they came into my life. I was guided. When I say I was guided, I was sleeping in a dawn shelter And every day for a solid week, I would get woke up at 3:33 to 4:44 in the morning with Mandy Morris talking about her life and her similarities that were hitting on my life. And I was like, okay, Spirit, seriously?
Hey y'all, did your vibration get a serious boost from this week's podcast? I know mine did. And I'm willing to bet there's a whole community that also feels the same way. Wait, actually, there is a whole community. That's right, on Facebook, we now have the Transformation to Expansion community where we actually have weekly discussions about the podcast episodes, and we even try out the freebies all together as a community to help us stay accountable. So definitely go ahead and check that out. The link is in the description below, and I'll see y'all there. Peace.
I ain't trying to, I was like, I don't know who this woman is. I don't know why you're guiding me to her. But at that same time, I was an open channel. I would be guided to go down at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning down to the kitchen, which it was a communal kitchen in this shelter. And there would be somebody new coming in, or somebody who needed a message from God, needed a message from Spirit. And I would start channeling. I would be sitting there talking for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it took. People were actually developing a fear of me, I found out at that time, because they're like, I don't know how you do it, but every time I walk into the space, you talk about something that I'm hiding, something that nobody knows, I haven't shared with anybody, and it scares the living shit out of me. She's like, I like you, I respect you, I know that you are what you say you are, but it scares the shit out of me. And I was like, okay, and just to be clear, the reason I was also in hiding was my husband had been part of a motorcycle group that were one percenters, and they have a reputation of being able to hunt people down, find things, and do things. I won't say that it's like what we see on TV. Please, as somebody who is also endorsed as a motorcycle rider, part of ABATE, I truly believe, there's a lot of wind therapy out there. There's a lot of beauty in riding on the back of a motorcycle, but not everybody out there, like in any group, is always good. So my husband participated in some really toxic spaces, and I knew I was in danger. So that was why we went into hiding. We had also had evidence that he was stalking us. My sons had witnessed him outside of our place at night, watching through the windows, scared them. And so we went into hiding to protect us. But that next year, I was spiritually guided to help a lot of people. I had a couple more kids abandoned with me. I had to turn over to the state because I was not in a place. It was a miracle that we spent a year in hiding. I had even entered into the address confidentiality program, basically making me a hidden entity within the state. It's kind of like going into hiding with the Secret Service. It's like I was completely untraceable at that point. But through that time period, I was still being guided to help and to offer help to a lot of other people. I had, through COVID, started basically a food pantry out of my garage. There was a program in the state that was farm to table. And while I had no money coming in and I was trying to put myself through school, I was guided out to a farm in Enlightening one day, and Spirit told me somebody was going to ask me to follow them that day. And a woman came out of her house and she's like, do you know anybody who's hungry? And I was like, yeah, I know lots of people are hungry. Me and my son had been feeding homeless, teaching him about being grateful for peanut butter and jelly. And she's like, great, would you follow me? And it was funny because I remember, first off, lady, I'm out here for some baskets. I don't even know why Spirit's sending me for, but I'm here and you're asking me to follow you. And I was told today to follow. So I'm following you. I followed her to another farm about 1.5 miles away where a semi-truck was unloading 22 pallets of non-perishable foods. I got on my Buy Nothing group in my community and we started hauling food back. I got an extra garage at my apartment and we started feeding up to 250 families a week out of my garage. I became the food pantry, the clothing bank, all of it. And when we had to go into hiding, those same people who I had fed, they were the ones who gave us the money, paid for the hotels, paid for the clothing, paid for my kids' Christmas. They literally took care of us. They were guided to. I had people who reached out to me who had no idea that what my name was. But they were like, I was guided to call you and I'm supposed to offer you a place to stay. Like complete strangers, they're like, I'm guided to put a roof over your head. Someone else called and says, I'm guided to give you this money and to give you this phone number, and you'll know when you're supposed to call it. It was straight magical, mystical. Honestly, I had always been a woman of faith, but the journey I had to walk away, and I can tell you, you can find when you choose to walk away and to lean on your faith and to lean on spirit, lean on God. You can find the answers. You can find you're out. It's always there. And just because you might hit some no's, hit some closed doors, trust that there's a reason that door was closed. It was always divine guidance, divine protection, because we always ended up where we were supposed to, and we always had more than enough. I learned to love myself. I learned to heal. I learned to recognize the toxic patterns of sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse through that time period. And my children, as much as they were, I had a daughter for 2 years who couldn't use a bathroom because of the trauma she endured in a bathroom. I had a son who couldn't walk past a construction worker or construction site without literally freaking out and almost running out into traffic. I had a son that I have had to put into Seattle Children's 4 times because of suicidal tendencies and how dark his trauma was. 4 children who literally went through some of the worst situations that one should ever have to go through. But I got them the help. We have a WISE, wraparound intensive services therapy here in Washington State, and it's a commitment of 27 and a half hours per child in therapy each month. And I committed all 4 children to that program. It's been 4 years now, and they have all actually graduated except for my 2 boys, but they're due to graduate actually this fall. They're on target. They've been doing amazing. They're leading healthy lives. They have friendships. They're back to making straight A's. I had to pull them out of school. They were completely failing at one point. They had no ability to stay there. My daughter was so threatened. My youngest daughter was so threatened because someone shut her in a bathroom one day. She freaked out. When she got out of there, she went running for them. They started chasing her. She jumped the school counter one day and grabbed a knife to defend herself because of how much she was triggered and in fear. Another time, school authorities went chasing her down, and one of them had actually physically abused her when trying to catch her, and knew that he wasn't even allowed to chase her because he looked just like her father. Height, weight, build, everything. This man knew he wasn't supposed to, but yet because he did, and she outran him and got away from him, when he finally caught her, he chose to physically assault her. I've had to go through so much while trying to help them heal between childcare services, different facilities. One left bruises on my son. It was wild. It was amazing, though, at the same time, because as much trauma as they went through.
So, have you ever felt like you're meant for more? You're here for a reason. Something inside of you knows that there's more. There's more purpose. There's more connection. There's more fulfillment. There's more love to be enjoyed in this life. What if all of that was here right now? Your life easier to navigate, your dreams easier to manifest. You can live in a life of ease, even in these uncertain times with Pluto being in Aquarius. Your community of expansion is right here at your fingertips. From the moment you enter, you feel the sense of release and comfort. No more wondering if all those downloads you got as a kid were just random thoughts. No more wondering that time you had telepathy, thinking that it was just a fluke. Be with the people you know are here for you. Join our ever-expanding community on Patreon for free. And for those of you who ask, yes, the Wellness Library is included. I love y'all so much. Let's get back to the show. Peace.
Therapy and spirit was always there to guide and to help us out of it. And the right doors would open, the right teachers would come in. And I had a daughter who couldn't use a bathroom, who is now, and even a year ago, she was only at preschool levels in school. She's now at a 4th grade level math. She's only in 3rd grade. 4th grade level math. Her reading has officially just hit 3rd grade level. And she's doing it. She can make friends. They all have made friends. They're all joining into extracurricular activities, doing team activities, they're healing. And it truly is a beautiful journey to walk. And I'm so blessed because as much as I've been able to teach them and guide them on how to heal and how to find forgiveness, I mean, I don't even teach my children to hate or be angry with their father. I've explained to him, I know his history, I know where he came from. Hurt people hurt people. It's the truth. My mother, my father, both came from abusive families, abusive relationships, very toxic and abusive lifestyles. They had to endure. Hurt people hurt people. It is the truth. It doesn't make it okay. As children, we take on these lessons. We don't know that we're taking on these lessons, but as adults, we have to recognize them. And it is our choice, it is our responsibility to face it and heal it, no matter what the situation was. And there is purpose to all of it. My purpose for everything I went through was ultimately here to help me understand when the cycle went to try to repeat, that I was the pivotal fork in the road. I was going to be the dike that forced everybody to alter course. And not only do I know that I've done that for my children, but I've watched. My mother and I have healed our relationship. I lost my father 2 years ago, but he still visits me constantly. He comes as the Cardinal. I see him as the Cardinal all the time. And he was a fan of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's even in a St. Louis Cardinal urn, you know. But very much, my father comes to me. He goes to my mother. He walks with her. He loves to play games on her. My mother, it was actually so funny when my mother realized that my dad was still with her because a music box in her house that she didn't even know, she had this snow globe music box. She didn't even know it had a music thing on it. And one day, and it's actually sitting in the curio cabinet under my dad's urn. And one day it starts playing music and she has no idea where this music's coming from. She's looking outside. She's realizing it's in her house. And she finds this music box, this water globe music box. She can't get it to stop. She dismantles this thing and still can't get it to stop. She took it to my dad's old bedroom, which was my brother's old room, and she buries it in a drawer under towels. She calls me because she had called her sisters and they think they're laughing at her. She says they think she's crazy. And she calls me and I'm like, Mom, what were you doing just before this happened? And she goes, well, I was talking to your dad and praying. And I'm like, okay. I go, what were you asking, Dad? And she goes, well, I was asking him if he was here. And I was telling him how much I wish he was here and he could just give me a sign that he was here. Well, I laughed at her and I was like, well, Mom, I go, have you acknowledged that you recognize he's there? And she goes, I acknowledge that I know your dad is here. And I go, okay. I go, have you checked to see if that music box is still playing? She goes, the last time I checked on it, it was. I go, well, I'd like you to go back there and check on it now. She went back and checked on the music box and it was no longer playing. So it's, spirit is with us constantly. And then, as I said, I went through school to be an electrician. So I'm a very scientific mind as well. And I'm so grateful for, my dad was really big on mathematics and understanding that math and science were truly universal languages and that we needed to understand that. And I didn't understand it so much as a kid as he was drilling me with all of these equations and numerical numbers and facts. But as I became an electrician and understanding we are all particles and mass and the way that neuroscience and metaphysics works and neuroplasty works, I was able to actually recognize the energetic and auric fields that surround each and every one of us in all life, and to my gift of being able to utilize it. The way that I could connect with the elements, the way that I could connect with the spiritual signs, and the way that I could ask or I could put hands on somebody and I could see their healing, or I could be guided to create something. And as I was creating it, I would know who exactly it was for or where it was guided to go. And every time I gave these gifts away, people would find healing. People would find ascension. I had a friend who I was going to school with. On our way out to the school, we passed by a motorcycle accident, and it was a DOA, dead on arrival, and I knew instantly. And of course, I said my prayers and sent a blessing to the soul for its release. My friend, who could sense that the man was dead, but she actually knew I could see, she goes, "I've never seen." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." She goes, "I don't know if I'd really want that gift." And I was like, "Yeah, that's understandable." So that night, as we were at the retreat center of our school, the dead man came to her. The motorcyclist came to her and wanted her to release his spirit because she could officially see for the first time. 6 o'clock in the morning, and this woman told me she never got up before 9. 6 o'clock in the morning, she's in the mess hall, the cantina of our school, and she's right in my face going, "I don't know what you did, but make it stop. Make it stop, make it stop, make it stop." That man came into my room. He wouldn't leave until I said the prayer and the blessing for him to leave. She's like, "I've never seen, I don't want to see, I don't ever want." It was funny. It was funny because I always called myself an amplifier. I knew that when people came into contact with me, they would start recognizing or having a level of spiritual gifts, something that they kind of always knew was there. But when people came into contact with me, it would amplify. I never said that I gave anybody a gift because I don't claim any credit on that. You are who you are. Spirit made you. God made you. Your soul has lived this life and has many lives to tell, and many, many things come back as we go through our evolution. So I never claim any of that, but it was something I recognized when I went to school. Oliver, my teacher, had told me that I was an activator like him. And I was like, that makes so much sense now. I was like, I understand. And it was so funny because it was really clear even at school. Sorry about the background noise, but it was really clear even at school that I was very, very gifted. I had an understanding to my gifts, and I had committed to them already, which in any spiritual person's journey, that's the biggest challenge, is actually committing to what you believe. And that's actually the healing journey, because every time you follow your spiritual connection, your spiritual guidance, you put back a level of trust to that inner child. That's why I speak about healing the inner child after domestic violence and sexual assault, because it has been through my journey that I understand that every time you trust yourself by trusting spirit, trusting the guidance you're being given, you gain a piece of yourself back, a piece that had been taken, stripped away, ripped from you, burned from you, whatever it was. No matter how powerless you felt at one point in your life, every time you commit and you take that leap of faith, you put that back in you. And every step had put that back into me, to a point that I was sitting there in a school full of people that were all gifted on some level. But their biggest issue for the most part was actually accepting the gift that they have and recognizing that it truly was them. You know, we have a tendency when we're early in our spiritual learning to put it off as it's somebody else is giving me this gift, somebody else is putting this on me, somebody else is sharing this on me. But in reality, it's always been within you. You're just coming to enlightenment with it. And so as I've walked this journey, I've been so blessed to recognize these spaces and offer it through what I practice, and teaching people how to recognize the elements, how to recognize the spirit animals that are crossing our paths and leading us to understand we're on the right path. And there is one thing I really want to tell people out there, and it's been one of the biggest things that has altered and changed my existence. And that is actually when I was guided to a spiritual no. Okay? Everybody develops usually a spiritual yes, or we're always looking for confirmations, and everybody sees them in numbers 111, 222, 333, 44, whatever it is, your birthday number. Everybody has their thing as far as that goes. And they're always like, yeah, I see it when I get it. But here's the reality, is sooner or later we actually need to have that no. And one day, as I was on my way back out to my school a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I was guided by spirit that I needed a number that told me, no, stop, don't go any further. This is the boundary. And being I was a mathematical person, I decided on the number 212. And this number has actually saved me so many times. And my son, actually, my children love to play the yes and no game with me. And I've never been wrong yet. Never been wrong yet, which is great. But when I receive this number, if I'm on the way to a doctor's appointment and I see this number on the license plate in front of me, or I look down at the clock and all of a sudden it says 212, I guarantee you that appointment doesn't happen. There's a car accident that's going to make me late. The office had some type of pipe burst and they're not there. The doctor had an emergency and called out today. Something always happens. But to give an even better example, I'm a spiritual teacher. I was working a spiritual fair, a metaphysical fair one day, and I decided to go to the spiritual speed dating. I was single, why not? And I went in there, and when I got in, there was a bunch of lovely people there. Nobody I was really attracted to, but I was open. And about 45 minutes into it, all of a sudden, this guy came in. Rather late, but he was cute. Okay. So I was like, all right, I'll talk to you. I'm not without eyes. So he was finally put in front of me, and I was asking him, questions off this sheet. And one of the questions was, so tell me something about you that nobody would really know. And he proceeds to start telling me about this number. This was his house number. This was his team number. This was his Boy Scout team number. This was his number in the military. This was his barrack number. This number rang in so many places in his life. And I was like, interesting. And he goes, recently I found out I'm native. And I'm like, okay. He goes, do you want to know the highway that goes right into the town where my tribe is? At this point in time, I'll be honest, I shifted in my chair. I'm looking at this dude full sideways like, Everything in me is screaming 212, 212. He goes, don't you? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and tell me. He goes, it's Highway 212. And I'm like, of course it is. I was like, of course it is. And he goes, you knew. How did you know? I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. He goes, no, you got to tell me. I was like, and they go, switch times. I was like, oh, don't worry about it. Thank God, right? But as I was going to leave there, he catches up with me and he's like, no, you got to tell me. He goes, you knew. How did you know? I go, well, first off, we're at a psychic fair. Okay, isn't that obvious enough? I go, you have a booth here. You're a vendor here. You know. And he goes, yeah, but you knew. And it wasn't just because of that. He goes, you knew. And I go, tell me this. What made you decide to do this? He goes, well, the first time the coordinator came around and asked me, I wasn't really interested in doing it. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but then she came back around and I decided, what the heck? And I'm like, okay, so why didn't you want to do it? He goes, well, my fiance. Your fiance.
Why? What the? We won't get into this.
It was so funny.
Maybe another day.
It was so funny.
There's the whole toxic,
there are. People. No, and I actually can 100% confirm that. I will 100% confirm that. And even if you are spiritually guided and led, trust your intuition. Not every spiritual teacher, not every spiritual guide is meant for you. The fact is they're not. Yeah. I actually turned away a client recently who had decided to go down the voodoo and hoodoo route to handle loss and tragedy. And I get it. But the moment some people cross over certain energetic lines, you have to know when to step away. You're not spiritually guided to help everybody all the time. And we have to know our boundaries. There are teachers out there for that. And they have a purpose. They have a place. I'm not here to judge anybody's spiritual practice. I know it well. There's a time where I studied it very much. But it's not called for everybody. So don't believe any one practice is your practice necessarily. You got to trust your spiritual team Your angels, your guides, your ancestors, they're there protecting, they're offering you guidance. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to ask the questions and follow the guidance when you're giving it.
Hey y'all, did your vibration get a serious boost from this week's podcast? I know mine did. And I'm willing to bet there's a whole community that also feels the same way. Wait, actually, there is a whole community. That's right. On Facebook, we now have the Transformation to Expansion community where we actually have weekly discussions about the podcast episodes, and we even try out the freebies all together as a community to help us stay accountable. So definitely go ahead and check that out. The link is in the description below, and I'll see y'all there. Peace. Especially when it comes to psychic abilities, or really it's not just psychic, even gossiping, right? You just want to make sure that you're doing everything from a space of love and compassion, because honestly, that karma, you don't want to deal with it. Like at the end of the day, if we're getting to like, when it comes to you, you yourself, like the audience, like when it comes to the karma, you don't want to deal with the karma. And if you are trying to get into these practices to get back at somebody or to get revenge, it's just not, even spiritually, you just don't want that. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, not from experience, I don't think I've cursed anybody, but just from basic karma, right? If I hit somebody at school, I'm gonna get hit back, right? Just from that basic knowing of how karma works, I don't think you really want that. I don't think you want that. So be really careful with that, because there's nothing wrong with
No, there's not.
You just need to make sure that you have the right teacher, and that the teacher is coming from a space of love and light. And when you meet this teacher, you need to have a good feeling. If you get a feeling that's like, your gut feeling is telling you there's something a little off, turn around.
100%. If you're not on an energetic alignment, then it's not meant for you. It's that simple. I've seen and witnessed so many different types of spiritual practices, from people who are dancing with snakes to people who are doing pins and needles and all kinds of things. I've seen it underwater, on the top of the mountain. I've seen it.
Wait, underwater? Wait, explain.
There are people who go to the water and they do long-term holding the breath and breathing underwater. And when they go to these spaces, they go to a meditative state and they make connection. They make connection to the water energies, the water elements, mermaids, other mystical beings that inhabit the water energy, and their higher spirits. Yes, we had.
Wait, how do you do that?
Well, to be honest, I think Moana, it sounds as funny as it is, Disney's movie Moana really speaks to a level of what gifts some people have when it comes to the water. I can tell you right now, every time I go to the water, I'm going to get wet. I can try to avoid it every single time, but it has never failed. Spirit makes sure that I get the salt water every time. I go down there, I can stay 20 feet away from it, but all of a sudden some rogue wave will come in and it'll be the one moment my back is turned and all of a sudden it's happened so many times. I'll be at the lake and all of a sudden it's like, it's calm still, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden just like this fish jumps and I'm splashed. I'm like, seriously, Spirit, was that necessary? Mm-hmm. It just always happens. I'm at a point where, I know that when I go to the water, I'm meant to touch the water. The water calls to me. I was born during a Piscean era, and my Venus is in Cancer. So I'm very, very much tied to the water and tied to the water energies. The river is one of my most sacred elements to use, because on the surface, we can all be at peace. We can be calm. We can be whole within ourselves. But don't doubt that underneath the surface, there is movement, there is action, there is a powerful force that carves and cuts its way through anything. And I mean anything. And life lives there. So the river, when I'm guided to help people find peace, to find grounding, to balance, a lot of times I bring in the river, because the river energy allows them to find the peace on the surface, but to recognize their power is still within them. So, and there's a lot of life to be lived there. But I've been guided on a lot of different areas within my shamanic practices and journey. And I will say a lot of it does coordinate along similar to Druid practices, which has been beautiful to understand, because I was seeing fairies. I was being guided to the oak trees to leave gifts and things and to ask for things. And I was seeing little things move and seeing sprites and all kinds of other mystical little creatures as I was growing up. And I had no understanding. I was like, does everybody live this enchanted world, or am I like Fern Gully over here and just having a moment?
Yeah, no, no, no. I like, so my thing is like I'll hear their frequency. So one time, because I want to, yeah, one time I lived in Mexico for about a year. This was during COVID. It was like a whole thing. We won't get into the details of it. It's like a whole book. But I would say I was trapped in Mexico. But either way, I went to this place called San Jose de Pacifico. I don't know if you've heard of it, but have you heard of it? Okay, yeah. So it's supposed to be the
I
mushroom
have.
capital of Mexico, but a lot of shamans are there and they practice plant medicine a lot from a very early age, very early age. But I was hiking one day, or not hiking, I was just hiking. Me and my
Yes.
friends, we went on a hike, a guided hike with a shaman, and it was really interesting because we stopped at this one space and he was like, "Hey, you know, here a lot of people claim to see elves here." And literally as soon as he said that, I heard I hear frequencies, so I heard a new frequency. It wasn't super high pitched. But it wasn't super low either. But the thing was, it was just a very different. Actually to this day, I don't think I've heard that pitch before. Like again, and I don't know what it was, but I was like, oh, it's an elf. So I started looking for the elf, but
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find it. But yeah, they're everywhere. But they're very like magical, and they're kind of like the felines of the world. Like they don't really, you know, they're not, well, actually you could talk more about this, but I'm assuming that, you know, they like to kind of hide away from humans, you know, right now, because we're still in this low vibration collectively, right? We are raising higher, but anyway, it's just so interesting, but you can actually see them, which is really cool.
They're guided to those who are ready for protection, and they make themselves known for those who are ready for transition or protection or even ascension, depending on where they are in their journey. But yes, when you're gifted with the sight or even the knowing of their presence, it means that you're ready for the next level of your activation and your healing, your journey. And they come to people at all different times. You know, even my children who are gifted, there have been times where